Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Kay here, and in the process of watching a video a little while ago, I actually saw a dangle, albeit briefly, on Bohemian Crafting's channel, and she said they took a long time to make, but I so liked the concept that I decided I needed to make some, which I went on to do, and I will share with you shortly. But I thought before I share the dangles with you, it might be good just to run through the process with you, which is actually quite straightforward, something that you could probably do sat in front of the television, or, you know, just quietly minding your own business on a day that perhaps you didn't want to be getting out a whole load of craft stuff. And what you need basically is approximately, and it is very much down to the eye of the beholder, but we're aiming to make scrolls of paper about that size. And if I just measure it for you, it is very, very loosely speaking about 3/4 of an inch, and all I did was cut up strips from papers that I'd printed that I knew I'd come to the end of because I didn't want to do anything else with them. And I got out this little quilling instrument, and all you do basically, if you don't have a quilling instrument, which is basically this kind of scenario, I don't know if you can see it, it's got the little pin on the end with the gap that you slot your paper into, and you literally just put your fold of paper into the groove of the little quilling pin, and then start to roll your paper along, and you just roll and roll and roll. Keep the tension quite firm, or as firm as you can. You could start this on a cocktail stick or something of that nature, but it needs to be something that you can tighten as you go, because you literally only want to be left with something that you could pass a pokey tool through at the end of the scrolling process. So you just roll away. I find that if I use an A4 sheet of paper that I've printed on, cut away borders and so on from whatever it is I've printed, that is more than adequate to make your roll of paper. At the moment I'm just using a bit of coffee dyed paper left over. You then get your favourite glue and just put that on the very edge of your chosen designer paper or whatever. Roll it along, hold it for a little while until you know that that is anchored, and you simply do that as many times as you want to make dangles for your journal or pages. It's one of those things that you can pop onto a paper clip and it sits there really, really nicely and looks very, very effective. Or you could make a cluster of them for the spine of a journal. It would be entirely up to you. Minimal ingredients to make them up. So that literally was a scrappy piece of paper left over from something else. I've then got my pokey tool here because I do want to make sure when I press down through that it comes out at the other end. It may well be that you need to go first into one end of your roll and then into the other end until you've got a clear passage, like so. I then have some 0.4 jeweler's wires. I used to make tiaras many moons ago, and this is left over from that, just one of these cheap Chinese. I think I probably got it on eBay or somewhere of that nature. You don't need anything too sturdy because clearly it doesn't have to take too much by way of weight, and you just slip that then having threaded on a bead of your choice first, and I've got these little rondelles. If I come in a little bit closer, you'll be able to see what I'm doing. I've put the rondelle bead on. I'm threading the little scroll of paper on top of that. Now it's up to you whether you ink or leave plain, whether you use patterned papers. It is entirely down to what you have floating around. Then a bead on the top of that. I haven't cut my wire yet, as you can see. Then I get my round nose pliers, put it quite near the end. There's probably about ½ an inch of wire there, and I'm going to fold that over one of the prongs of the flat nose pliers, and then I'm just going to wrap that around. It doesn't have to be too tidy, it doesn't have to be too tight, but you do need to make sure that when you've done the wire wrapping, the ends of the wires are quite close together. You then end up with that little loop scenario, which I'm hoping you can see. Bring all of your components that you thread onto the wire down to the base and really squidge them into place. That helps any unrolling that might have occurred on your little paper scroll, as you can see. And because you've wrapped the wire underneath and then kept the edges together, that tends to slip into the body of the bead. It doesn't matter if it doesn't, because this is just to anchor onto something else, as I've already explained. I then do another length of wire, and it's approximately the length of, well, a thumb's thickness, if you like. I don't know, about ½ an inch, 3/4 of an inch again. And then you take your roll of wire, your round nose pliers, fold it over the top of the plier again, and then wrap that tail. If I show you, it's not easy to show, but I've got that little tail there. I've got some square-nosed pliers which might let you see a little bit better, and you just take that little bit of wire and you wrap around and wrap around. Because the wire is not very heavy duty, you can actually do it with your fingers without too much problem. The main thing, again, if I can get that up to the top, is to make sure that you don't have any sharp edges floating around outside of your bead. So if you can see there, you can just about make out the prong of the wire that I'm wrapping. It's there, and you just want to make sure that that is wrapped around the wire as best as you're able. What I tend to do then is, once I've got it where I can get it safely, squidge that all together and make sure that there are no edges protruding outside of the bead, and then you can just pop that back inside the bead again. And whilst it's not very professional looking, I don't know what on earth I've done there, I don't think I've wrapped it enough. I'm so anxious to let you see the process that I'm cutting corners. I'm going to put that back in, and I'm going to wrap that a little bit more. This wire at 0.4 is actually thin enough and pliable enough to just use your fingers and keep wrapping it around. Unless you were going to batch make, you know, a good old few, your fingers don't have to suffer too badly for the process. And that then is how it looks when it's wrapped. I'm hoping that's clear on the camera, and all you really have done is wrapped around the main body of the wire and then filled up the gap, pushed away the edges to make sure that you have got a very secure little scroll on the end. What I do then, and again it's up to you how you want to decorate, is I get one of these paper clips which is about 1.5 inches. I go to the outside prong of the paper clip and it dangles on there quite nicely, and then I've got some corrugated card, just offcuts, little scraps again, and all I do is make sure that the way that I want my paper clip to open is around my thumb, and I tuck one side in that side, tuck the other side in through the other side of the paper clip, if I can get it to behave itself. So you end up with that scenario. Bring the card through, fold it over so that you've got a nice little folded area on your paper clip, which still allows you to utilise the paper clip as a paper clip. I then get some of my glue, pop that onto that back area, very loosely speaking, and then fold that over and hold that in place until the glue has gone off. Yoo-hoo does dry very, very quickly, so there aren't any great issues with it. Clearly something that took a little bit longer you would want to set aside with perhaps a little weight on it to hold it where it needs to be, and then you simply trim off the excess like so. So you can see where this is going already. You've got that slidey bit in the centre. Again, you can ink it either end, ink it around. It's entirely up to you. I then have some very little pieces of lace which I pop through the top of the paper clip and anchor them down. I have been using a bit of thread, which I haven't got on the table with me at the moment, but something just to tie that off to keep it where you want it to be. And already it's a really, really pretty little something that you've put together for your journal. And then what I've also done, I've got some tiny little butterflies here that I've cut out using a punch, and I just punch out several together so that they are quite strong. Put that at an angle over the corrugated card there, and again hold it in place until it's settled. And then what I've done literally is got some little bits of bling. This is just pearls here, little 3 or 4 millimeter pearls, and I've just put those onto the butterfly like so, and that is the very lovely, if you put some baker twine around the top, which I don't have on the table as I say, so I can't show you how to do that bit, but you know anyway. And that really is a rather lovely page decoration, or as I said already, you can cluster them together and make a lovely little dangle for your journals. So I'll move all of this out of the way because you only really need to see it done once. It is very, very straightforward. As I say, your main ingredients are some 3/4 inch, half to 3/4 inch strips of paper, the 0.4 wire, paper clip, and decoration, a couple of beads, and you're set to go. So I batch made a whole load, oh excuse the dogs, to show you how they come out and what a variety you can make of them. This is the lace tied off again with the baker's twine. There is a different coloured bead, some DSP which I've inked either end, a faux button I made for the Crafty Mixed Media Emporium on Facebook, the group there. So that was that one. There's the butterfly with the inked scroll on it, beautifully decorated again with the corrugated. I then made these tiny little ones with a single heart and a little pearl and a different coloured DSP. You can just see they are just so lovely to make. On the buttons I've just used on some of them, that's just ordinary DSP that I had left over, and because I was going to use something quite large, it didn't really matter that the DSP was hidden because it is just a platform to anchor the button onto. But I've made lots and lots here. They are super duper easy to make. It's only your imagination that will limit how you dress them up and decorate them. I'm trying to get in so you can see them a bit more clearly, because they really are so lovely, and I just fell in love with that scroll aspect that I think is just so pretty. I just absolutely did fall in love with it. So I hope you've enjoyed the share. I hope, as always, that I've inspired you to try these little lovelies. They really are. I mean, if you put a little cluster of them together on a larger paper clip perhaps, you know, that really would make a lovely little dangle. You wouldn't have to necessarily use the scrolls in a single way. You might want to put extra ones on and have your paper clip with your dangles falling down that way, downward across your page, for something completely different. Or you might have kilt pins that you could fit them onto. It's just a very versatile little embellishment for a dangle, for a paper clip, you know, however you wanted to do it really. So I hope I've inspired you to have a little try. There are about 25 here, I think, altogether. But once you get into them and you've got all your little scrolls of paper done and all that kind of thing, that's all you need. You could even have a lot of those just nesting in a drawer somewhere until you wanted to decorate them fully to go on to another project. I've used the crystal bling because I just like a little bit of sparkle on my projects, but clearly you could use pearls, you could use whatever beads you had floating around, as long as they were on a par or slightly larger than the barrel of the paper, which you can alter as you go along. So that said, happy crafting everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this little show and tell, and I look forward to bringing more to you in the not too distant. Take care everyone, happy crafting, bye bye for now.